Good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief on Channels Television. I'm Jeffrey Uzon, as always. We've been through the big stories and the highlights to help you make sense of the situation of what's playing out in the polity and in the country.
And speaking of the polity, the dawn breaks after an eventful last 12 or 24 hours, if you like. Well, welcome to the program where we help you make sense of it all. Your perfect morning starter here on Channels Television, The Morning Brief. I am Bukola Koka. Jeffrey.
So, Bukola, what are you tracking?
What else? But KWAM too, Jeffrey. It's been a very dramatic 24 hours, particularly since August the 10th, when KWAM 2 played out. And it appears as if, you know, many may have run off with one part of the narrative. But as more details continue to unfold, we begin to get a clearer picture of what may have transpired. Of course, investigations must come through on exactly what happened that is not particularly, plain to the public at this point in time. But from what happened with these reported misconduct of Miss Comfort Emerson and staff of Ibom Air, there just may be enough blame to go around, because we're beginning to get details from other passengers who say that, in fact, Miss Comfort, when she was being approached by the staff of Ibom Air to switch off her phone, had said that she had put her phone on airplane mode, but there was some form of belligerence from Ibom Air staff, and of course that exchange continued. But of course we must also emphasize that there is absolutely no reason for this passenger to have lost her cool, but we must also put in proper perspective and ask questions. Was she provoked? What amount of provocation led her to this level of misbehavior? Because in another part of the video we see that Ibom Air staff are saying that she's damaging the aircraft. At that point she had completely lost control. That was prior to her being carried out of the aircraft. Yes, so they were saying that she had she was damaging the aircraft. But we also see in another video where she was trying to get out of the aircraft, but the staff wouldn't allow her. So that led to the series of events that we saw, where she was now dragged out of the aircraft, but in a very dehumanizing way. We saw a lot of indecency on social media yesterday, and I believe that Ibom staff require an explanation as to why she was treated that way. Even if she refused to get out of the aircraft, why didn't they ask security to come and escort her out in a most gentle manner, maybe forceful, going by what may have transpired within the aircraft, but without that humiliation? There's no amount of explanation that could have been given that would be sufficient for the way she was treated, where she was stripped. Jeffrey, we don't want to see that for anyone, male or female. That was the highest form of humiliation for any human being, no matter the conduct or the misconduct, as the case may be.
On that particular element, I totally agree. And that's why I want to come to the minister. First, I want to commend Minister Festus Keyamo and also make my own strong observations as well. In both cases between KWAM 1 and Comfort, his response was swift. He waited to understand all sides and understood all sides of the story, and then in his statement on his X handle, which I read during the KWAM 1 incident and this one, he was able to identify everybody that was acting one way or the other irresponsibly, whether it's the staff or the passenger themselves. And so he addressed all parties for the KWAM 1 incident. Of course, he talked about his unruly, reckless behavior. He also talked about the unruly, reckless behavior of the pilots in that KWAM 1 incident. This one also, he talked about the fact that the girl was unruly, but he also reprimanded the Ibom Air for the way, in fact, for filming. He said you can actually film if you choose to, but releasing that element of the video where the girl was exposed. Now her body is all over the social media, all over the internet.
Everywhere.
I think she should press charges against them if she chooses so. So on that element, it was very swift. He said whoever released that video should be made to face the full consequence of the law, as a matter of fact. But this is where I have a bit of a trouble. The swiftness in prosecution. So whether it's NCAA or Ibome, because if you look at the charge sheet that he shared, it came as the Commissioner of Police versus the girl. The swiftness in prosecution of this girl as against that of KWAM 1 leaves much to be desired. This is why people are calling it selective justice. People are calling it double standard. In fact, if you want to look at the scale of committal or criminal liability, I don't know whether it's a crime now, so let me use my words.
That's another, that's the video from another angle where we see what exactly is happening through a glass window of the aircraft. We see there the exchange between, I believe, Ibom Air staff in reflective jacket and Miss Comfort.
Yeah, I think when they were trying to take her into the bus or something like that.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, that's inside the bus, I beg your pardon.
So what I was saying here is that at the moment, you see what happened with her? Because she was unruly, they blocked her. That video we saw that they refused to let her. Whatever happened inside, we do not know. Is there a word against them, whatever. So at the moment where she was about to leave the aircraft, they insisted you're not going anywhere. And then I don't know why when they eventually came in to bring her out, she didn't follow them, but it was, you know, the chaotic situation. That's exactly what they should have done to KWAM 1. Bundle him. But they did not do that. So that's why the double standard comes in. Somebody standing and blocking. Literally, the man was attempting suicide. Because if the engine of the aircraft was at the wings, it would have been sucked in. They should have bundled KWAM 1. But this is the end. This is where I'm going to with all of this. The swiftness in prosecution. For KWAM 1, they said pending investigation. So, you know, I said yesterday that the man cannot escape going to court. The, what do you call it now? The apology, yes, you know, all of that. No, you can't explain all of that to the judge. Just like Sheena has gone, she's been taken to court. She's not been granted, I think she's been granted bail, I don't know, but because she didn't fulfill her conditions and all of that. So where I'm going to with all of this is that I respect all the minister has done, but on the bit of prosecution, whether it's NCAA or the airline itself, that is where there's a problem.
Or even the airline operators of Nigeria. We're going to get to that part of the conversation.
So where I'm going to with all of this, now, this is a clear case of the where this government, or when I say government, I mean, of course, agency of government and all of that, will now be looked at with the prism of whether the rule of law holds sway in Nigeria. This girl has already ended up in court in hours. KWAM 1 is still working free. It should have been bundled.
As a matter of fact,
it should have been bundled.
That he has released another single asking for forgiveness.
No, he cannot be forgiven by anybody. It is the judge. You know, I said that yesterday. I was saying he should be grateful that they pulled no flight or whatever. That's even itself, because if you look at the sections of the law, it could border on hijacking, and that could end him in jail for the rest of his life. So he has to end up in courts, just like this girl ended up in court. Whatever comes out of the judicial system is another kettle of fish. Both of them were recklessly unruly, no matter the level of provocation, except your life was at risk or whatever. So all of this grammar we're speaking that we're not privy to all the details, you go and explain it before a judge. Anything less, Honorable Minister Festus Keyamo, anything less than KWAM 1 also finding himself being docked and facing a judge will be looked at selective justice. You've done well. I like it. Literally, Keyamo put on his activism this time and was really, really measured in addressing the issue. But the prosecution bit, everybody must face a judge. Everybody.
And here's the charge sheet on Miss Comfort Emanson that was released, you know, within hours of the event. Let's just read some of the charges. On the date, time, and place in the aforementioned magisterial district, did assault one Juliana Edward, I believe that's the name of the air hostess, by slapping and hitting her cheeks with your right hand and thereby committed an offense contrary to Section 170 and punishable under Section 172 of the Criminal Law of Lagos State. That's count 2, by the way. And count 3 says that the passenger of the same day at about 14:50 hours in the aforementioned magisterial district did assault one Jokpame Sagun by hitting her face with your slippers and thereby committed an offense contrary to Section 170, subsection 1, and punishable under Section 170 of the Laws of Nigeria 2015. Of course, you can find more of this, the details on our website, channelstv.com. But we must emphasize the point that the swiftness of the response of all actors involved applied to Ms. Comfort Emansin must also be applied to KWAM 1. The same way KWAM 2 has been treated, KWAM 1 must be treated. If not, the event, the sequence of the event may have come through to test the commitment of the regulators to the rule of law as they have demonstrated it, for Ms. Comfort Emansin. If not, as they say, hypocrisy will be preaching virtue from a den of corruption. So we must see justice on all sides done to both parties for KWAM 1 or KWAM 2. But there'll be more on this particular conversation. KWAM 2 is
that is the name. That is the name given to the Comfort incident. So for the audience who don't understand what's going on, because that's somebody's name actually. KWAM 1 is a name. So let's be clear. It's not just an acronym. King Wasiu Ayinde Marshal the first. So,
but everybody knows that.
So KWAM 2, I don't know where that is coming from.
Ascribed to the event of August 10th between Comfort Emansin and the staff of Ibom Air.
So this is a classic case of the test. This is the most recent test of the rule of law. First, the airport officials, they've already dropped the ball in one of the elements. You did not bundle KWAM 1 out of the airport for his dangerous, unruly, reckless behavior, which the words of the Honorable Minister says, I think it's temporary madness or something there's a call. He wasn't bundled because that was almost tantamount to hijacking. The courts will interpret that. But for this girl, she was bundled. And she was even, I don't know, she was so violent at some point.
No, more like dragged. She
was so violent.
More like dragged.
She was also violent on her side, but...
It's unpardonable, Jeffrey. But we must emphasize the point about the way she was humiliated. She was practically dragged.
It was very dehumanizing.
Stripped. It was.
Whether it was an error or whatever, it was no, it wasn't acceptable. And I think
videos of her being stripped are all over the social media.
Yeah.
And she saw that she was being dragged, and she saw that she was being recorded. As a matter of fact, in one particular video that was released yesterday, she was screaming when she realized that she was being recorded, and she hit, I think she hit the person that was recording her. So we must emphasize the point that anyone who hasn't been trained in anger management may have lost their cool had they got the same treatment that Comfort Emansin got yesterday from Ibom Air staff. But on both sides of the divide,
everybody dropped the ball. That's what I'm saying. Everybody dropped the
point that there's enough blame to go around.
Because at the end of the day, if you look at it as well, I think I'm not sure. I stand to be corrected. But it felt like is it the security people that came and pulled her out, or is it Ibom Air staff? We don't know. But the vest they were wearing seemed to be Ibom Air, or whether they are attached to Ibom Air, there's the security for Ibom Air and all of that. But at the end of the day, whoever released that video, I agree with the Honorable Minister Festus Keyamo. That person must be reprimanded. This girl's body is all over the social media. She should actually sue and get whatever she can get out of whatever, if it's obtainable in the law. But for me, KWAM 1 should also find his way in court this week. Let's not hear stories. Let him go and explain all forgiveness, all of that, just like this girl. Because I said it yesterday that it cannot escape going to court. It's not a question of what the judge does and what maybe a presidential pardon, because if he's found to be guilty of hijacking, he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail. This girl, I do not know what the consequence of her action. I don't know what the consequence of her action will be, but it may border on fine and a jail term as well, because she obstructed operations. So whatever played out, that's what we're going to with all of this. There's always a way to seek redress, Bukola. Now everybody will end up in front of a judge. everybody will not end up in front of the judge. So all these people, nobody is innocent now until, everybody ends up
until proven guilty.
Everybody is innocent after.
And this is where we must also emphasize that we must also call out the passengers who were in that flight, to come and provide clarity, further details as to what exactly happened, such that we're not running with the narrative of another person alone who said she had actually put her phone on airplane mode, but the IBOM air staff continued, to sort of harass her about her phone. Nobody's saying that you shouldn't abide by rules whenever you're on board a flight. More often than not, every time, as a matter of fact, you're asked to switch off your phone or put it on airplane mode. But the other and we must obey. But we must ask the other passengers to come through with information as to what exactly happened. Was she being disobedient? Didn't she switch off her phone or put it on airplane mode? Because we're hearing from an account that indeed she had put her phone on airplane mode, but the harassment continued. So we need more details to help the regulators in their investigation and, to help her defense as well, as she has now been charged to court. Yeah, so Jeffrey.
So at the end of the day, we're going to be big on this conversation today. We have a couple of conversations, but we're going to be very big. So that's the Honorable Minister's statement on the IBOM Air incident. So if you can catch a glimpse of it, if you can go to his X handle, I don't know whether it's legible for everybody to pick up, but you can see that he addressed every element of it. The only part that I picked hole in is the swiftness in prosecution. The other one was pending investigation, then no fly, but this was, I'm not saying he prosecuted, but the swiftness or whoever prosecuted, that same measure should be
applied.
Yes, because I think it's a criminal offense, if I stand to be corrected. So, Commissioner of Police in Lagos State against the girl. So at the end of the day, Bukola, we will address the issue of passenger conduct. We will address the issue of the legalese around all of this. But let's ask you the question of the day.
Yeah.
Question of the day. So, this is our question of the day. KWAM and miscomfort treatment. Now, whatever it is about these two scenarios, whatever it is this selective justice or difference in context? So I will say that again. KWAM and miscomfort treatment. Selective justice or difference in context? So, you have the answers. All you have to do is to check us out on our email. Send all the details there. The email is there, themorningbrief@channelstv.com, or you hashtag us on X at CTV Morning Brief, or you send your response to our WhatsApp number right there on your screen. We have seen two classic cases of unruly behavior by passengers and dropping the ball as well by the crew and staff of these airlines and, in fact, the airport authority. But on this particular one, from all you've known, from the behavior of the passengers to the behavior of the crew to the behavior of the staff and the prosecution beat and everything is this a question of selective justice or difference in context? You, Nigeria, have your say. Okay, I can imagine this may even turn political or something.
Oh, speaking of that, I chuckled when I saw a tweet on X from Senator Shehu Sani yesterday, and he was asking, shall we also forgive Ms. Comfort Emansin for her conduct? And that's in reference to the tweet put out by the NITCOM boss over the KWAM incident.
Yeah.
She had asked,
no, I think
she had said to her is human. So, shall we also forgive Ms. Comfort Emansin?
For the records. For the records, nobody has forgiven KWAM because he has to face his day in court. I was a bit squirming like, if I wish Ms. Abike Dabre did not put up that thing she did. She should have just stayed. You see, the presidency, everybody stayed out of it. Because there are certain things you can defend. There are certain things you don't, just stay away. Whatever, you can do your back end, whatever, just stay away. For what she did, the measure of flag she got, I think she brought it upon herself.
Silence is also, complicity. Wrong behavior must be condemned by all and sundry, no matter how conflicted they are in under the circumstances, no matter how close they are to KWAM 1. So unruly behavior in any climb must be condemned, and that's why many are saying that when these individuals find themselves, outside Nigeria, they comply with the rule of law. They join the queues. They don't misbehave. They don't come up with the "do you know who I am?" ethos that is found in Nigeria. So why don't they do the same in Nigeria? Is it because Nigeria is tolerant of misbehavior? So you have the question of the day to respond to today. Go to all our social media platforms. The email is also there. It has been put out earlier. It will be repeated. Let's have your thoughts on this particular one. And we're huge on it, by the way, on the program today, besides other offerings that we have for you.
All right, as a matter of fact, we'll get started from outside our shores. But within Nigeria, Israel planning is defending its plans to take over, military takeover of the Gaza Strip. That has divided even the global north, where some are saying they are going to recognize Palestine as a state, and that has been a big issue. The Israeli Foreign Affairs Minister will be joining us on the program in just a moment. And from there, Bukola, where do we go?
Yes, also we have a conversation on the state of nation amid the positioning and realignments of all. Of course, we'll have that one as well. We're huge on, the IBOM Air and miscomfort incident. We're huge on that particular one, but we'll also be focusing on state of nation as we have a conversation on political alignments and realignments ahead of 2027.
And just to get back to that bit, which is big on the program today, the incidents of passenger behavior and crew behavior at airports. So they'll show you again the KWAM 1. Bukola says there's KWAM 2 now. We'll hear from the NCAA. We'll also hear from the lawyers. Let's look at all sides so that everybody can learn a lesson under the rule of law, under behavior, conduct, and all of that, so that everybody will learn once and for all, because this is clearly exposing us to who we really are as a people in management of situations like this, from crew to passenger to even the agencies of government, whether it's selective justice or not. You have the answer. But hey, let's get to the dailies now. Let's get to the dailies and find out what the dailies are saying. Bukola, let's get to New Telegraph. New Telegraph. Babache Lawal, I warned Nigerians Tinubu will sideline non-Yoruba supporters. Says he can't forgive the president, has evidence Obi-Wan 2023 poll. Oh boy. I think this was in a conversation yesterday he had with Sheung on Politics Today yesterday, where even, I think I understand, he said that he wouldn't have, even if he had worked with the president by now, he would have resigned or something like that. So Babache Lawal has been, spitting fire lately, since after that election, and the issue around who won and who did not won has come up yet again. But I think the court has settled the issue of victory as far as the 2023 presidential election is concerned. The court had affirmed President Bola Tinubu as the duly elected president of the Federal Republic. Whether Obi won or he didn't won, that is now a question of history. But Babache Lawal has a problem with, perhaps, is a lopsidedness or favoritism by the Tinubu administration in terms of maybe his appointment and project. When it comes to appointment and project distribution, the government is always under fire, and they're always coming to defend. So Babache is believing that he had warned Nigerians that this president is going to sideline people that are non-Yorubas. So you look at the facts for yourself, and tell whether or not this is true, I think one of the observations we had made to that extent, some people had made, I looked at it, was the issue of all the money points. Minister of Finance, CBN, FIRS, Customs, everywhere the money moves in or out, they are from the Southwest most of the time. I think apart from the budget office. So that in itself, because he literally, in fact, some people in the Southwest are saying it's not Southwest, so it's Lagos boys that are running this government. But the government has always come to defend themselves. In fact, there was a time, I think Sunday Diary put out a list of names in terms of appointments, and that almost got him into trouble. I think whether he deleted it later or so. But this is how Nigerians process when it comes to appointment. And I think politicians are being clever by half when they try to respond in the way I see them respond. So there are appointments that Nigerians and even the politicians see as non-juicy. Do you get it? They don't see those ones as juicy.
As real appointments.
Yeah, Minister of Labor. As important as that ministry is, they don't see it as juicy in that sense. But when you say Minister of Petroleum, Minister of Finance, CBN Governor, we can go to Minister of Works, and all of these places, they see it as, because a lot of monies are spent or money goes through some of these ministries. So when you make appointments and a certain tribe or ethnic nationality, Buhari, they screamed at Buhari for former President Muhammadu Buhari for a long time. That his appointments were lopsided, and he went on with whatever he did. Bola Tinubu as well, some of the appointment that is considered juicy as well. Some people say it's Lagos boys, especially that has to do with financial aspect. I just mentioned customs and all of that. So Babache still has a problem with that. But if you want an explainer, I am not Babache. I'm just explaining what I think he said in that conversation. You can go to the exact page on the New Telegraph to get detail for yourself. Bukola.
Well, Jeffrey, we may have to, subject the positioning of, some politicians to thorough scrutiny by, embarking on a head count of the number of appointments such that we can speak more effectively to these viewpoints expressed by politicians, not just, Mr. Lawa now, but other politicians of northern extraction, because some who have done the head count have said, look, maybe not the GC appointments are more, but in terms of north and south distribution, this administration has appointed more people from the north. But we must subject that to an independent scrutiny and not run by what others have said. But as far as these issues are concerned, some maybe all the administrations may be guilty, with the exception of a few, because during the last administration, conversations had come through to the effect that they were speaking to how the inner cabinet of the former president was dominated by people from the north, and how that was also repeated by his vice, whose appointments were dominated by people all from the south. And these commentaries are available online, but we must approach that point in our political history where merit comes first before issues of zoning or prebendal politics. But let's go to other papers now as we look at the Nigerian News Direct, which doubles down on events of the last 24 hours. Of course, the passenger behavior and relations with air staff. 6 months ban on KWAM 1 remains despite apology. That's ascribed to the NCAA. As AON, that's the Airline Operators of Nigeria, Ibom Air, slam lifetime no-fly ban on passenger over in-flight assault. That's the big story on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct, and we must continue to ask that the same treatment be applied to, the first actor in this particular series that Nigerians are watching. On a scale of even comparison, how do you, measure which offense was greater if you consider what the aviation laws say about the conduct of trying to prevent an aircraft from taking off? So, we ask that the airline operators of Nigeria should respond to this particular one as well. But that's it from the Nigerian News Direct.
We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be speaking with the Israeli ambassador Israeli ambassador to Nigeria, Foreign Affairs Minister, I beg your pardon, Israeli Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs will be joining us briefly to explore the conversation around the Gaza Strip. After that, we'll have the NCAA join us as well. Let's talk about this whole scenario that's been playing out at our airports and look at all the elements as much as possible. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back. And just before we, set the tone for that particular conversation, which we have done already, by the way, but just before we get right into it, let's focus on international politics, particularly the Israel-Gaza war. An event which has been concerning for the international community since October the 7th, 2023, when this began. And joining us for this conversation is the Israel Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ms. Sharon Haskell, who joins us virtually from the Federal Capital Territory. Good morning, Ms. Haskell, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me this morning.
Let's start with, your country's plans for Gaza, which is another talking point amid the Israel-Gaza conflict. The Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has spoken about how Israel will take control of Gaza and hand over to Arab forces. But the international community is seeking clarity on what exactly the plans are if the Palestinian Authority will not be allowed to, take control following the, eventual, hopefully, resolution of this conflict. So what exactly is the plan?
Well, look, I think it's very simple. On the 7th of October, Hamas declared war with the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. This terrorist organization has raped little girls, burned people alive, executed and abducted more than 250 hostages, that 50 of them still remain captive in their hands, being tortured, abused, raped, physically, emotionally. And we've said there is one way this conflict can end: when the Hamas return all of our hostages back home and when it's disarmed. Israel cannot live next to this terrorist organization who's a death cult, who is threatening to continue and commit those crimes against our people over and over again. During the last few weeks, we've been negotiating to try and find a ceasefire. We've been negotiating in good faith and actually going quite a few steps towards Hamas's demands. We've already approved the ceasefire draft that was drafted by the United States and by the envoy Witkoff. Unfortunately, Hamas time after time refused that proposal for a ceasefire, refused that proposal for the negotiation, and was not negotiating in good faith. Those talks fell apart just last week. And when we saw the images of two of our hostages, Rom and Eviatar, being starved to death by this terrorist organization, we understand they don't have a lot of time. So our government decided to take the only option that is left, and it is to continue a full military campaign to liberate Gaza from Hamas and to bring back our hostages. I hope this military campaign will start in the next couple of weeks, because our hostages don't have a lot of time left. Seeing those images, understanding their conditions, and so we will go in with our army, we will liberate the hostages, and hopefully we will be able to disarm Hamas as quickly as possible. This is what the Prime Minister meant. The day after Hamas is going to be an issue for the international community, as it's being discussed for the last 2 years, in the hope that Arab neighboring country or a responsible, even Palestinian entity might be able to try and sort and lead from a civilian perspective together with those Arab countries, somewhat of the civilian lives of the Palestinian. We understand it's going to take time, and the security aspect will need to be remained in Israeli hands to make sure that no other terrorist organization, not Hamas and not ISIS, not other ones, will rise up in order to threat our community and our people.
All right, Minister, it's understandable to be worried about living around hostilities like Hamas. It's condemnable what Hamas did on October the 7th, but it's also condemnable some of the action that Israel has taken. Because if you're talking about killings, how would you describe the position of Israel in terms of the costs in this sense? We understand about 60,000 or plus persons are being killed, a lot of them children. So it feels like Israel is as guilty in terms of this killing as well, just like Hamas did. When people push that to you, how do you respond? How do you justify your action?
Well, the first thing, I think that if anything, the Nigerian people truly would understand Israel's position. Because if Israel does not fight Hamas, the terrorist organization, and does not dismantle it, we will face a similar situation like in Nigeria, where that is committed sometimes on a daily basis by Hamas. And so our government has said this is absolutely unacceptable, and we will dismantle this terrorist organization. Now, they are using horrible tactics, including using people, Palestinians, as human shields, hiding themselves and their military bases underneath hospitals, hiding their rocket launchers and armed warehouses in schools, because they know that Israel does not target those facilities, so they decide to hide there. What Israel is doing in order to make sure that no civilians will be harmed is, actions that no other army in the world has taken. We send text messages, we drop leaflets, we make phone calls to civilians in areas before the IDF, our army, is going in, to make sure that they evacuate and that the only ones left are Hamas. Does Hamas get those warnings as well and sometimes make our work a lot harder? Yes. But in order to try and avoid civilian casualties, we do that. In the beginning of the war, when we sent an evacuation notice in the front of Gaza Strip, all around the north, we told civilians to evacuate and to go to the south as the IDF will come into the campaign in the north. They started evacuating, but Hamas snipers were shooting at them, killing them, threatening them to stay in the north, not to flee to the south where they will be safe, because they wanted to use them as human shields. The Israeli army had to eliminate Hamas's snipers in order to facilitate a safe route for Palestinians to flee to the south. Now, those kind of actions are actions that are not being taken by any other army. And if you look on the results in numbers, in regards to a civilian casualties towards a combatant, this is a 1-to-1 ratio. Now, don't get me wrong, every loss of life is a tragedy, but those numbers are not very much being achieved in any other urban warfare in our modern history. And so because those actions, there are less and less civilian casualties.
Ms. Haskell, let's manage our time and expand the scope of this conversation, even though, the Arab Authority in Palestine would, challenge your position on some of these issues. But another issue that is concerning for the international community is the targeting and killing of Al Jazeera journalist Anas al-Sharif and 5 others. And besides that, there's also a tally of the number of journalists that have been killed amid this war. What is Israel's explanation for this and for, according to reports, more than 500 others who have been killed amid this war, and the concern also about the refusal to allow journalists really capture the situation in the Gaza Strip?
So first of all, I want you to pay very good attentions to those images of the funeral that you're bringing up, to actually dismantle the lie of starvation in Gaza. Those images comes from recent days. And, as a continent that unfortunately know how famine or starvation truly looks like, you can see that those people are very well fed and are not on a starving situation. This is the first thing, and these are very recent images. Now, in regards to the journalist, if you go to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs website, you will see that those journalists, this particular journalist, is not a real journalist. He is a tool in the hands of Hamas. Many images of this journalist together with the leadership of Hamas are there. They are being used as a propaganda tool as part of the war. This war against a terrorist organization is not just being fought in the army front through military, but also through media. And when you say that my numbers are being disputed by the Palestinians, the information that you're getting are from the mouthpiece of Hamas. This is Hamas Ministry of Health, who is spreading a lot of lies and a lot of propaganda because they understand this war is also being fronted in the general media, on social media, and that's why they're spreading those images. But the fact is that this particular journalist was in the service of Hamas. There are images of him with the leadership. Many of those journalists have taken part in the 7th of October massacre. I have images of them on the 7th of October on Israeli tanks, in homes of people who were abducted into Gaza. And so you need to understand that they are being served as a tool as well. And you asked me about why journalists cannot enter Gaza right now. And I think it's very important to understand the Gaza Strip is a very, very small area. The width of the Gaza Strip is between 6 and 12 kilometers. It's tiny. This area is a front line, and we are trying to shield civilians from harm's way. We cannot take responsibility for journalists who are in the front line. Even in Ukraine, where you can report quite safely from Kiev, who is hundreds of kilometers away from the actual front line, the active war. You can report safely, but the Ukrainian army is closing down the areas where there's an active war. And unfortunately, in Gaza, there is an active war. And I just want to remind you the last thing. When Hamas has abducted 250 people, they also abducted foreigners, including a Tanzanian civilian, including Thai workers, including Filipinos. We have to pay the price to release them, whether it's through an armed conflict and whether it is through the release of terrorists, of murderers from our prisons. So if any of these journalists will be abducted, unfortunately, it will be on the responsibility of Israel to release them as well. And this is a responsibility we cannot take right now.
There seems to be a very slim line between propriety and necessity when it comes to issues bedeviling the Israeli and Gaza war. It's an ongoing conversation. We wish we would have you back, but we're totally out of time at this point. We must thank you very much for coming to put some clarity to these issues. We've been talking with the Israeli Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ms. Sharon Haskell, who has joined us on this one from Abuja. Thank you for coming through on this conversation.
Thank you.
We'll take a break now. When we return, we'll get even more clarity from the aviation authorities on the events between Ms. Comfort Emanson and Ibom Air staff, and of course all other related issues. So stay with us, we'll be right back.
Welcome back. Let's now switch gears to the conversation around the incidents that have played out at our airports, both at the Abuja International Airport, that's the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, and the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos, involving passengers KWAM 1 and Value Jet, and now Comfort Bob Emanson and Ibom Air. And there are so many commentaries. The politics seem to be divided on all sides. But what we know so far, KWAM 1 is still under investigation. He's been put on the no-fly list. Hopefully she'll have his day in court after that investigation. Well, for Ms. Bob, she's already had her day. She's been remanded until she meets her bail condition at the Kirikiri prisons. That's in custody. And that has generated a lot of controversy on whether there's double standards, selective justice, and whether the contexts are totally different. We'll explore all of it. But let's begin with the conversation we have with the NCAA Director of Public Affairs and Consumer Protection, Mr. Mike Achimugo, joining us virtually. Mr. Achimugo, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
Let's talk about the latest incident that played out. In fact, the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, in both responses was very clear in identifying where everybody dropped the ball, from the passenger to the airport authority or the airline now in that case. But maybe walk us through what you know beyond what we've seen on camera as to what played out with Ms. Bob that ended us swiftly before a court getting remanded, and for Mr. KWAM, while he's still walking free, to the best of my knowledge, even though he extended an apology, but he's still walking free.
Well, it feels a little bit sad to be sitting here again to discuss this kind of issue over something that, you know, a simple compliance could have resolved aboard that aircraft. There is no comparisons here, not necessary, absolutely. It's not a case of oranges and oranges. You know, in the KWAM incident, the airline did not activate its right to take the passenger to court. So the CAA did what it's supposed to do by petitioning the relevant authorities to prosecute the passenger. In the Ibom Air incident, maybe because, you know, their staff has been assaulted, the airline immediately activated its right to take up the matter, you know, and then it went to court. So the CAA is not involved in the case of the Ibom Air passenger. You remember that in the KWAM case, the CAA issued an advisory to AON, the operators, to you know, ban the passenger. Meanwhile, I need to correct this impression. I keep saying 6 months. We did update that information and say that the ban on KWAM was now indefinite, pending outcome of the investigation. So the 6 month narrative no longer holds water. In this particular case, the airline operators, having seen some of the videos of the assault, made this decision by themselves. You know, so the CAA is not involved in this. Basically, at the end of the day, in both cases, what the takeaway lessons from this is that, look, the system is being tested, and there's enough blame, you know, to go around everybody, fan ABSEC, cabin crew, passengers. But, you know, as with every issue, we must treat the root cause of issues. Unruly behavior is not acceptable anywhere in the world, no matter the provocation. That's for starters. The regulations are not sentiment-based. Those rules are there for the safety of every passenger. Secondly, you must always obey cabin crew when you are aboard an airline. You don't make the rules for safety in aviation. So when you are asked to do a thing, in this particular case, other passengers on board that aircraft are said to have been the ones who seized this passenger's phone and turned it off. You know, when you are flying with other passengers, you know, their safety and their concerns also matter. Your rights stop where theirs begin, right? There are passengers who, when the announcement has been made, turn off your phones. They feel very uncomfortable and unsafe to see the person next seat not turning off that phone. So the other passengers were made to feel very uncomfortable, you know, and this entire situation was very avoidable, because when you turn off your phone, it's only for a few minutes. You can turn it back on mid-air, you know, and so this was quite avoidable, but we'll see what the courts say about it.
So, Mr. Chimugu, granted that in the case of KWAM, ValueJet is not pressing or did not press charges, but in the case of Ibom Air is pressing charges. But the NCAA is the regulator of the aviation sector in the country. So in that case, besides asking that the Inspector General of Police and the Attorney General should investigate and prosecute, shouldn't the NCAA also be initiating a case in the case of KWAM 1 and in fact this particular passenger, Comfort Emansin, because it is the regulator of Nigeria's airspace?
Yeah, I've said this severally. You know, the NCAA does not have the power to prosecute. So the NCAA cannot prosecute KWAM 1 or the Ibom Air lady.
All right. Some people have also said that in the case of the airline operators of Nigeria and this lady, that the airline operator has no power to put in place a life ban on her. What is the position of the NCAA on this one?
Airline operators have the power to blacklist any passenger who is unruly and put it a risk. You know, look, we have a lot of flight disruptions in Nigeria because we lack capacity. There's not enough aircraft in Nigeria at the moment to fly passengers. And so while managing the capacity we have at the moment, any risk to aircraft is not going to be acceptable. People spend a whole lot of money leasing or buying aircraft, and then you want to destroy aircraft. If anything had happened to that plane yesterday, would she have been able to afford the repairs beyond even the cost of it? There were passengers waiting in Lagos to be flown elsewhere by that same aircraft. That passenger needed to be removed from that aircraft. Otherwise, it would have led to a chain of flight disruptions, and passengers waiting would no longer have accepted the excuse from an airline that we are cancelling for operational reasons, and then they would have needed to start sourcing for foreign exchange to go and fix that problem. So look, the crux of the issue is this. Yeah, there are other issues, down the line, but the crux of it is you are not permitted to hit anybody. You are not permitted to disobey cabin crew while aboard an aircraft. These are the regulations globally and must be complied with. And at some point, we need to start deciding whether we truly want people, to face the consequences of these actions or not. Because when these things occur, different opinions start coming up, most of them based on sentiment, it's a little bit disheartening and confusing to us.
So, Mr. Chimoko,
we abide by the rules.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on abiding by the rule. I think that is not debatable, but these things have happened, so we must explore the issue as they come. According to the stories we've heard, and I think NCA has petitioned the IGP and the AGF to prosecute KWAM 1, that is the expectation. So, two questions in one. There was also an issue of assault by KWAM 1 because we heard, according to the testimony of the pilots or so, we heard whatever substance was in the container he was trying not to present, he poured it on them, according to them. So that in itself is assault. But where I'm going to with all of this is the fact that how does NCA interpret the action of KWAM 1? Because we're going to look at both sides, the Comfort story and the KWAM 1 story. It looks like there's a weightier trouble for KWAM 1 because I looked at the regulator at the NCAA Act, whether it's Section 53 of the old one or Section 56 or so of the old one, Section 83 of the new one, or amended one, I don't know, that has to do with hijacking and interference. How do you interpret what he did? Is this hijacking?
You know that both cases are now have now been pushed to court. And I cannot be preemptive of cases that already have...
No, Mr. Chimoko, we do not...
Can you hear me?
Yes. For the records, has KWAM 1 been sued?
Not to the best of my knowledge.
So you can comment on it. You can come. I just want my apologies. My apologies.
From the NCAA end, the issue has been escalated to the relevant authorities. It's no longer in the jurisdiction of the CAA. Likewise, the case of the Ibom Air lady, the case is already in court and no longer in the jurisdiction of the NCAA. At this point, what the CAA can do is mediate if all parties involved choose such a path. Remember that the owner of Value Jet is said allegedly to be a friend to KWAM 1. That could perhaps have explained why the airline did not push the matter legally. So in that instance, the CAA did what it needed to do by law. In the other instance, the airline chose to activate its right to press charges through the police, of course. And so both ways, the right things have been done. And so let's wait for the outcome of the legal processes.
Mr. Chimugu, this matter is as much important for precedent as it is for what is exactly is transpiring now. Nobody knew that Ms. Comfort Emerson drama would play out within 48 hours of KWAM 1. So we'd like you to interpret the behavior of KWAM 1, the Fuji musician, within the context of aviation law, such that we can know how to apply the laws when or if such behavior occurs in the future. What does the law say about his behavior preventing an aircraft from taxiing on the runway?
Preventing an aircraft from taxiing is tantamount to hijacking that aircraft. That fact I have already made clear several times. In fact, in some climes, it's regarded as terrorism. This I have also said a lot of the time. But the way the law works is up to the justice system. The CA has done its part and has done a criminal referral to the relevant authorities. So we wait for the outcome of the legal process.
Okay, I think yes, that's what we wanted. That's the commitment we wanted to get from you, because to the best of our knowledge, just like you, we haven't seen a suit being filed. We haven't heard from the AGF or the police, which is why people are looking. And I think it's a candid advice that they should take the case to court. However, it comes out.
But again, don't you think that as a media house, hearing that this case has been escalated to these authorities, that you need to invite them to speak for themselves? Because I keep getting asked questions that are not within my purview.
The reason is because of course we'll get in touch with the police. On one hand, if there's somebody to testify, the NCA somehow will find itself in court. So in case you've been called and all of that. So these are all, everybody's involved one way or the other. Our job is to cover the story. You are the one that escalated the issue to the police and the AGF. So you're the one that will be called upon to say, okay, what do you know about this case? What was reported to you by the airline? So that's why we're asking whether, as at now, whether you have any information. But moving forward, there's one more important thing, or some more. So we're going to go to the issue of comfort, but Bukola has some more questions. But I wanted to find out, at what point can a passenger act out of order? I'm using that word carefully, assuming that the crew, because on the Ibom Air incident, we see the crew dropped the ball. On the issue of KWAM 1, the crew dropped the ball big time because he was supposed to have been bundled out of that place because he is endangering himself and endangering somebody else. He could have been killed if the wings of the engine was at the wings. He would have been sucked in, and this conversation would have taken another turn altogether. So for his own safety, he should have been bundled out of that place. What is left to the customer when he's pushed or she's pushed to the wall? Because you're here for also customer protection as well.
Yeah, before I answer that, you see, there's a little bit of an irony, not from you specifically, but from a lot of commentaries I've been reading. When the KWAM 1 incident occurred, there were several persons who held the opinion that you just also expressed, that have been bundled. An unruly passenger should be bundled for the sake of safety, right? Now, another incident has occurred right after that, and the passenger has been bundled, and a lot of people have problems, with that passenger being bundled. So at some point we need to decide what truly we want, But that aside, the CAA Consumer Protection Department, which I direct, is the Apex Consumer Protection, Aviation Consumer Protection platform for passengers to file their complaints. Even after the Ibom Air incident had happened, by midnight, Nigerian passengers stranded in Casablanca, Morocco, had reached out to me. Apparently there was some sort of delay that meant that they missed their connecting flight, and they were left without accommodation in Morocco because they didn't have visas to be allowed into the city to access that accommodation. I stayed up all night speaking with the airline, the airport authorities, and the passengers until they were given accommodation in the terminal at the airport there, and stayed with them until they were given boarding passes to another flight that later took them to the UK. So the point I'm trying to make is this: no matter the provocation, rest assured that you can always file your complaint to the CAA and it will be dealt with. Self-help is not permissible in aviation anywhere. There's lots of videos of aviation security in other airports in the West, handling passengers, unruly passengers with extreme prejudice, because it's any way you look at it, it's not right. And again, there's responsibilities both for passengers and cabin crew. First, I need passengers to understand that they are the kings of the industry. Without passengers, there's no industry. And so their rights are respected. Also, remember that cabin crew are fellow human beings, and in this case, a fellow Nigerian who, while doing her job, also deserves to be treated with courtesy and dignity on that job. The moment you lose your mind because of any kind of disagreement, it becomes a problem. So, look, reach out to the CAA through cpd.nca.gov.ng at any point in time. And also remember that CAA's consumer protection officers are physically present at every terminal, 23 terminals across Nigeria. All you need to do is just be a little bit patient, get to the terminal, look for the CAA consumer protection officers, and they will help you resolve these issues amicably. It's better at the end of the day. It might take a little time, but it's better than the scenes we are witnessing today.
Mr. Chimugo, even though you say that the NCA doesn't have the powers of prosecution, I'm sure that the NCA has some level or a healthy level of engagement with airline staff and airline operators. And to that extent, I want to ask, how concerning is it for the authorities that Ms. Comfort Emerson was treated in the way that she was treated? And this is not in any way a question that tolerates her behavior at all. And if the authority is concerned about it, what investigations has it done on its part as a regulator of the aviation space to find out what exactly transpired in the aircraft before the altercation between Ms. Comfort and the IBOM air staff, to the extent that the authorities should be condemning whatever it is that has been that can be interpreted as bad behavior on the part of both the crew and, of course, Ms. Comfort Emerson herself. This is because of the videos that we have seen of her online. So help us understand your level of investigations and your intervention in this manner, because some are saying that it is IBOM air staff that was seen dragging her out of the aircraft, but that shouldn't have been the case. But aviation security should have been invited to escort her out of the aircraft.
Because this case is in court, there's a limit to how much I can reveal at the moment while the investigations are ongoing on our part. But overall, the system is being tested. Like I said earlier, there's enough blame to go around. And no matter the regulations you have in place, until incidents like this have actually occurred, in real time, there's no way to tell how, effective your regulations and the applications of them same will be. There are questions to be asked. Why was FAN AFSEC not there on time? Were they even informed at all by the cabin crew? All of these things, the investigations will throw up. And I'm glad it's happening so close to the KWAM incident as well, so that, the questions will get asked all at once. Yesterday, I've spoken to the NCAA AFSEC, who regulates FAN AFSEC, and spoken about the need for them to call FAN AFSEC to a meeting, and look again at their system, a tactical strategy when handling passengers like this, and so on and so forth. The DGCA, that's Captain Chris Najomo, has also called for a meeting with all the security agencies present at the airport for Tuesday next week, so that we can see what has gone wrong and the areas that need redigging. If these events do not occur, we have no way of testing the system and making these improvements. It's unfortunate the videos, the particular video people are complaining about circulating, and the person who posted such a video will definitely be brought to book. The Honorable Minister has asked for that official to be fished out and punished. The airline, I see this morning, have also issued a statement that that staff will be punished. On our part, we will ensure to see the end of it, to ensure that there's fairness on every side. So there's no escaping it for that member of staff. There's no escaping it for security agencies at the airport who may have not been very efficient throughout this process. However, I want us to still understand that from the regulatory perspective, the crux of the issue is on really passenger behavior. If that didn't happen, a lot of these other things would not have occurred as well. So it's important, and we'll continue to do our part, by way of continuing passenger education, so that people know the behavior, what's expected of them at the airports and on aircraft. The problem we have been having is that despite all the awareness campaigns, passengers seem more obsessed with their rights than their responsibilities, and it's a factor that we hope to see change, because these same passengers, if the same incidents that they claim provoked them to such actions here happened abroad, they would still not have behaved in the way that they have acted here. So we need to start, complying better with laws in our own country.
So one more from me. Because of the weight of the offense of the first part that we saw by the Fuji musician KWAM, shouldn't the CAA be concerned that ValueJet is not pressing charges? And in that regard, shouldn't the authority be asking ValueJet why it is not pressing charges?
No, see, there are layers to these things. The airline has a right to, go the legal way. But where they have not done so, the CAA, because you see, airlines are businesses. Sometimes some of them, for the sake of image and other reasons, could decide, look, patronage, continuous patronage could say, you know what, we can just simply mediate these issues. It's a right for them. Even in the case of the IBOM Air passengers, they still has an opportunity, of course, to mediate with the airline. If all parties involved say, look, we don't want this to go any further, the airline can still withdraw its case, via the state, of course. But if it's not a crime for the airline to not have, proceeded to court. The CAA is here, we've done our part. If IBOM Air had not taken it to court, by yesterday evening, the CAA would have submitted a petition to the Attorney General and Inspector General of Police to prosecute that passenger as well. So both ways, the right things have been done.
All right, Mr. Chimogo, I know you have other engagements, so we'll let you go in just a moment. I don't envy your job right now. A lot of explainers from your end. But let's just give us a synopsized version of this argument around switching off the phone and putting it in flight mode. Because some people argue, oh, when I go abroad, nobody forces me to do this and that. So once and for all, explain to us why this is important, why it must be switched off, or whether or not just putting it in flight mode. Because as you said, and I totally agree with you, we must go to the roots of how things escalated to this point. So talk to us about this switching off a phone, and of course, the issue around flight mode during landing or takeoff.
When I came into civil aviation, this is the question I also used to ask, because personally, I used to hate being asked to turn off my phone as well, But, it's been explained to us that if your phones are on, somehow it interferes with the communication system of the aircraft. Perhaps if only one passenger has their phone on, it may not be that much of a problem. But if everybody is allowed to keep their phones on, it could have that interference. And it affects safety, of course, of the aircraft. But beyond that, the point is this: there are regulations. Those regulations are ICAO standard. There are countries or airlines you fly who do not ask you to switch off your phone. They tell you you can have your phone on airplane mode. But you cannot say because this airline does this, another airline does not have a right to its own policy. Your duty is to respect cabin crew and the regulations at all times. It's not a matter of choice. The place to have that argument is not when a flight is about to depart. You can file a petition to the National Assembly, to the CAA, to whatever authorities you want to, asking for, another look into that particular part of the regulation, because regulations get reviewed every time, every now and then, right? But not while you are already aboard the flight to take off. You want to start arguing based on your personal opinion. You do not have that right. Obey the laws. Look, it's like the argument where people question why passengers should pay for trolley at the Lagos airport, for instance. And then these people come online and say, in saner climes, nobody does that. But we also travel. I have paid for trolleys in cities like Miami. As a matter of fact, I reminded this passenger, last year in Miami, I paid $7 for a trolley. This year, when I returned to Miami, the fee had increased to $9. Now, different airports have different rules. You know, there are slight variations to these regulations and rules. Your duty is to respect, obey the rules of each airport airline that you are traveling with. It is not a time for arguments.
All right, Mr. Chimogo, I think we'll take that. Somebody was reminding me that the reason why it's called flight mode is because you can use it while flying. Flight mode. That's why. That's why it's called flight mode. What do you make of that? Just in 10 seconds.
Well, these are just semantics, and then we are playing games with our own safety. Okay. The regulations here say turn off your phone. Just turn it off.
Okay. All right, so we will be looking at how the two situations play out, and of course our eyes will be on you, Mr. Chimogo, and the rest of you at the NCAA, so that this will not be looked at as selective justice, because if anything, if both of them don't end up in court, trust me, you get the flags of your life. Let the judges and the court decide their fate, or whatever is settled afterwards. Mike Achimogo, Director, Public Affairs and Consumer Protection. We must thank you. Appreciate you for coming on the program. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll take a breather from the issue of the airport incident. We'll come back to the legalese part of it towards the end of the show. We'll get a lawyer to help us. You know, now we're just talking about regulation and all, but we'll talk about the laws where a lawyer will break it down. But after this break, we'll bring you political conversation ahead of 2027. Umar Sani, former spokesperson of the former Vice President Namadi Sambo, will be joining us in a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back. All right, let's explore some bit of politics now that we're never in short supply of, particularly ahead of 2027. So what do we know that is playing out? We know that, of course, spokespersons of the ADC have been telling us that the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in 2023 has not yet joined the ADC, but is still a member of the coalition. We also know that former Vice President and presidential candidate of the PDP in 2023 is also delaying joining the coalition amid rumors that there may be a new and big interest in that top seat also, speaking about former President Goodluck Jonathan in the race as well. Let's put some understanding to all of these issues and talk to one of the forces in Nigerian politics who joins us on the program today, by the way, and I'm talking about none other than Mr. Umar Sani, former PDP Presidential Campaign Council spokesperson in 2019, and former media advisor to former Vice President, architect Mohammed Namadi Sambo. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And we hope you're well, too.
I'm very well.
So
I'm glad to be on Channels Television.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to start pointedly, and this is coming off of the interview that you granted most recently, in which you talked about former President Goodluck Jonathan being the ideal candidate for the PDP and not Mr. Peter Obi. In that interview, you're quoted as saying that even though Mr. Obi's integrity speaks for him, it is better for the PDP and the North to support Jonathan, who by law cannot spend more than 4 years, than to have Obi, who is only bound by his words. You described Mr. Obi's position in that he will spend only 4 years as mere politics. So to that extent, I'd like to ask that, is this not an uncanny admission that politicians cannot be trusted when they make promises during campaigns, that it is only, you know, a strategy to get into office and they're not necessarily telling Nigerians the truth?
No, the issue is not about politicians' reactions, but sometimes it is the followers' reactions to these issues. Now, Mr. Peter Obi could be very sincere. You know, after I made that comment, some other people followed up the comments And some even went further to say that even if he went to the shrine to swear, they will not believe him. Some others said he's just, giving tales by moonlight. But by whatever way they are trying to address him, the issue I raise is not about Obi's integrity, but about how he panders with his supporters. Now, we all know that his supporters will not agree that while the Constitution says you are supposed to do 2 terms, and then you are giving promises for 1 term. Perhaps more importantly, if his performance in the first term, is something to write home about, they will now urge him to continue. So there are so many obstacles to that promise. It is a promise made, but may not be a promise kept. So the issue is not whether Obi will keep the promise, it's whether they will allow him to keep the promise. However, I insisted on Jonathan because whether he makes a promise or not, it is immaterial. So we are not looking at Jonathan from the promise angle. That has been resolved. The law has already taken care. He cannot do more than 1 term. So if he cannot do more than 1 term by the provisions of the law and the Constitution, then the only thing remaining for him is to only do that 1 term and go away. And so the North will not feel shortchanged in the whole system, where continuity will be the watchword. The issue is the North also is desirous of getting the 8 years, since it has now become an unwritten law in the Nigerian political space that the South takes 8 years and then the North takes 8 years. And so if that is the case, it is better for the North to trust on somebody who will not violate that provision by, being instigated by followers to say, okay, look, you are doing well. You have already restored the economy. You have done this, you have done that. So please continue. So it is not a failure of the political system. It is the failure of the political followership, who are always urging, whether rightly or wrongly, for somebody to continue.
So, Mr. Sani, are you saying that even though you agree that Mr. Peter Obi is a man of integrity, you still cannot trust him?
You see, the issue of integrity is something that has to be with the person. Now, the point is, most times politicians tend to pander to their supporters. Now, certain decisions of Mr. Peter Obi, if you believe me, if you agree with me, are more or less a reflection of the collective agreement and understanding of the obedient movement. So he doesn't want to offend the obedient movement, and the obedient movement want to vociferously support him. So it's a symbiotic relationship, and that relationship, he doesn't want to hurt it. Now, if he makes a promise and his area of consultation are not in agreement with that promise, then there is a problem. That is what I'm saying.
All right, so this sounds more like, for viewers or for onlookers, is this more of the North, Mr. Sani, is this more of the North trying to ensure power goes back to them than fixing Nigeria?
No, you see, the issue is, I am from the PDP, and most of us in the PDP who are from the North feel very shortchanged. Now, why we are saying this is because if you take a trajectory of leadership of the 16 years of the PDP, you will understand what I'm saying. You will discover that the North had not done much within the PDP. All the leadership from the PDP were from the South. Now, when you equate that to Nigeria, it means you are saying that we within the PDP should now accept that Buhari worked for the North and not for Nigeria. He is using, he has used his platform of APC to campaign and to win elections. But we within the PDP, we didn't support him. In 2015, I supported Jonathan. I voted for Jonathan. My house was almost, arsonists were in my house. They wanted to burn my house because they know I was supporting Jonathan. So, to me, justice is that within the PDP, power should move to the North. Even taking a holistic look at what is happening within the Federation. Taking cognizance of the fact that we have even come to accept that Buhari's 8 years is a northern affair. But within our own platform, you know, we are operating a multi-party system. And if you are operating a multi-party system, it means everybody for himself, but God for us all. To your tent, O Israel. So if you look at it completely, you will discover that most of the agitations for these things come from the PDP. We are not members of the APC. Buhari has done his 8 years, and then they say has not performed. It is not that it is APC that didn't perform. It is not enough that didn't perform. APC are not performing. And so PDP during our time, we have performed. So we are saying give a chance to the person who performed, and that the person you are removing, that you removed the last time, and due to the allegations of non-performance, has now come, that the rejected stone has now come back to be the cornerstone. He is now the person people are yearning for. Even in the North, they have a special name for him, for Jonathan, because he has done so much for the North. For instance, I can give you some of the things. In the 14 universities he created during his period, 9 of such universities were in the North. He was the first person to even think of the less privileged Almajiri, the itinerant education system in the North, to have created 166 Almajiri schools scattered all over the North, and there is no area that has not been affected by that Almajiri school. He also initiated the rail transportation from Kaduna to Abuja, the standard gauge rail line, and ensured that all the narrow gauge across the country were put in order. And so, more importantly, the North was the greatest beneficiary of the standard gauge and the narrow gauge. So, just putting these things in milder perspective, the North has viewed him as somebody who is more not friendly. For instance, I was discussing with somebody yesterday, and he said I should just name one gigantic project that Buhari has done in the North, for the North. And I was looking around, I couldn't find any. Then I reminded him, I said, oh, there is a school of transportation in Daura. He said, but that one was also not even his initiative. It was Rotimi Aimechi who decided to do that and then go and notify him. And then also did all the rail lines from Maiduguri to Maradi, from Kano to Kaduna, and the rest, But otherwise, he was not even thinking about the North. So this is my perspective of the whole situation.
So, Mr. Sani, do you think that someone like Jonathan, who a lot of, of course, when he was in government, they criticized him that the issue of competence, the issue of corruption, there were so many layers. Some people, they wanted any other thing aside Jonathan, and they were happy. Okay, Buhari came, everybody saw the results, and now President Bola Tinubu is here. Well, one of the big things he did was how he left office. I think that was one of perhaps the very first time we had a president incumbent not going to court. He was the first incumbent to lose an election, and he didn't go to court. In fact, that phone call with him and Muhammadu Buhari literally doused whatever tension was building up in the country, and for that he's celebrated all over the world as a man of peace, and he's been traveling around as an envoy across board. Do you think someone like Jonathan is still interested in being president of the Federal Republic? Is there a conversation going there?
Yes, he's a Nigerian.
No.
And as a Nigerian, he has the right to aspire. He has a right to aspire to become president again because he has a remaining term that he has not yet executed. And that will also depend on Nigerians. If Nigerians desire him, they will give him the chance. There are so many allusions to the fact that he's interested. Quite a lot of people are, in fact, I will say, I was the first person to come public with it, to say Jonathan may contest, you know, but nevertheless, up to now, there is no refutal or any other means of denying that my story is not correct. In fact, the story is gaining momentum, such that this morning on another platform, an international platform, the Hausa Internet, it was reported that he is holding meeting with Peter Obi to be able to, request Mr. Peter Obi to step down for him. That is to tell you that there is something brewing under the air. And Jonathan, has given Nigerians what they have lost within the APC years. He has given them confidence. He has given them a sense of nostalgia. People now think, during Jonathan, I used to buy rice now at 8,000 naira per bag. How come it is now 120, 100, and maybe just of recent it has come to about 90, 80, What is really happening? Why is the inflation affecting the naira? Or there was no free fall of the naira. As at the time Jonathan left office, the dollar to naira appreciation rate was $1 to 198 naira. So which means that he was able to manage the the naira float to the extent that our currency was not so devalued as to look almost using late General Idi Amin's words, shit money.
So, Mr. Sani, if we get you correctly, this is the direction of the thinking of the opposition, the People's Democratic Party, that there may be a groundswell of support within the rank and file of the party to bring back former President Goodluck Jonathan to contest the 2027 election. And if you're saying that he will complete the tenure of the South, which is 4 years, and he cannot, by law anymore, contest after that. What you're saying is that the PDP is prioritizing zoning above the interests of Nigerians. So it's not about what Nigerians really need now. It's about what the PDP is pushing such that power can return to the north. So the PDP is more concerned about power returning to the north than what Nigerians really need for transformation.
No, now, I don't know what you mean by interest of Nigerians. Who defines the interest of Nigerians? The interest of Nigerians is to ensure equity, fairness, and justice. That's the interest of Nigerians. And how will Nigerians be judged as to what constitutes their own interest? What constitutes Nigeria's interest is when they decide who they want and at what time they want him. It is not about any other thing, because if it is transformation, Goodluck has been tried, trusted, and tested, and he has the capacity to deliver. So why would Nigerians reject him? If he knows himself that Nigerians will reject him, he will not even agree to all the calls being made for him to join the race. So he knows that Nigerians at the moment are looking for not a messiah, because we cannot get a messiah in Nigeria, but we can get somebody nearer to a messiah. And that most times in the north, in fact, the current thinking is that if Goodluck Jonathan comes back, price of rice per bag will return back to 8,000, even though that is not correct. But because they believe that he has a magic wand, that there is something he can do to change the current dynamics, the economic dynamics, the security, even though security was one of the issues that affected him, but he was tackling it very well. As at the time he was in power, he got the South African mercenaries who are experts in counter-insurgency attacks, and they came in, and we tried to buy so many machines. They were using the Leary law in America to deny us, so we had to go to Belarus and some other East African, Eastern countries to go and buy them. We bought some of our tanks at that time. Even Boko Haram, as at that time, when those tanks were coming in, they normally call those tanks Ebola. Why do they call them Ebola? They call them Ebola because those tanks do not, they are not, no EIDs sent to them will damage them, and they can step on landmines.
All right, Mr. Sani,
they can step on landmines.
But my apologies, apologies. I see that you're really marketing Good Luck Jonathan. Whether or not he chooses to accept is a different kettle of fish. But we must wrap up the conversation.
Well, I have to tell you.
Yes, we're totally out of time. We're going to continue this conversation, Bukola.
All right, Mr. Sani, we wish, I was holding up because I was expecting that you would tell us how, former President Good Luck Jonathan would somehow return the bag of rice at the price of a bag of rice to 8,000 naira. But thank you so much for your time. We've been talking with the former PDP Presidential Campaign Council spokesperson, Mr. Omar Sani, and former media advisor to former Vice President Architect Namadi Sambo. Thank you for coming through on this one.
All right.
Thank you so much.
All right, fantastic. We're not done with the conversation yet. So straight up, we're not taking a break. We're going straight. So, we did promise you we're going to look briefly at the legalese around this whole airports, passenger, airline matter. Kevin Udim is a legal practitioner. He does these explainers online. You can check out for yourself sometimes. Kevin, please, thank you so much for coming on the program. And can you kindly unmute your device so we can hear you?
I've done that. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's just give you like 2-3 minutes so help us make sense of, if you can do a quick juxtaposition of both scenario and what the law says in terms of behavior, consequence for action, who dropped the ball where, and what this leaves all of us.
Well, if you look at the National Civil Aviation Act, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, it has made copious provisions concerning the behavior of passengers on board an airline. So if you look at Section 85, Sub 2 of that Act, National Civil Aviation Act, Sub 2 says that anyone while on board an aircraft, if the person interferes with the crew members or becomes unruly while on board, the person commits an offense, and if found guilty, the person is liable to pay a fine of 200,000 naira, or be sent to prison for 2 months, or be made to pay the fine and also go to prison. Now, if you look at Sub 3 of the same Section 85, it specifically prohibits the use of mobile phones while on board an aircraft, where the mobile phone is capable of interfering with the signals of the aircraft. It becomes an offense. And that section also provides that if you are found liable by a court of law of competent jurisdiction, you shall pay a fine of 200,000 naira and go to prison for 2 months, or you'll be liable to pay the fine and also go to prison. Now, if you look at Section 85, Sub 4 of the same Act, I'm talking about the National Civil Aviation Act, it says that the pilots in command shall take necessary measures as may be necessary to ensure the safety of the aircraft and passengers on board whenever he is faced with an unruly passenger, and may request the assistance of any person on board, to assist him in bringing that person to order. So the laws of the Federation of Nigeria, it's already there. In fact, it has even mentioned the use of mobile phone while on board the plane. So it is not something that is new to the Nigerian legal system. And I think that everybody is expected to obey the law. When you go on board the plane, you should be able to behave in accordance with acceptable standard of behavior so that you don't fall on the wrong side of the law, because when you get convicted, I mean, it's a serious issue for anybody.
Another thing I'd like you to provide clarity on, which Mr. Chimugu spoke to earlier, is what rights does the AON have to impose a life ban on flying on an erring passenger? Because some have said that in line with aviation laws, the AON is not a statutory regulator and has no legal mandate to unilaterally abridge the constitutionally guaranteed rights to freedom of movement under Section 41 of the 1999 Constitution. But Mr. Chimugu says that if the action of a passenger negatively impacts on the property of an airline, that the airline reserves the right to act. So I'd like you to provide clarity on this particular concern.
Well, it's a dicey kind of situation. Lots of persons have said you do not have the rights to stop a citizen of the country from freedom of movement and then the freedom to choose the means of movement. But at the same time, when you look at Section 4, Chapter 4 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which makes copious provision for fundamental rights. I think there are about 12 fundamental rights that have been specified in that chapter of the Constitution. There is no provision that says that there is the right to fly by air, by whatever means, It gives the general rights for freedom of movement. And therefore, if the airline operators are saying, we are not going to allow you to fly, I find it difficult to see how a citizen of the country whose conduct has been found to be unruly can get justice in the courts to the extent that the courts would compel the owners of the airlines, to carry her. Now, don't forget that the relationship between the passenger and the owner of the aircraft is contractual. And so when there must be an offer in the price, and then the acceptance you pay, and then a contract is created. If you pay and the airline operator says, I am not receiving your money because I consider your behavior to be unruly, it therefore means that no contract has been created at that point. If no contract has been created, then no contract can be said to have been breached. But let me say this. The airline operators, it is an appeal to them. I think that banning her forever is excessive. And I think that should be reviewed. I think that the Aviation Authority in Nigeria should also look into that. At the end of this whole thing, I think that the issue of banning her forever, indefinitely, is something that needs to be reviewed. But I don't think it is strictly something that has to do with fundamental rights, because by and large, when you go, if you want to travel by air or by any means of transportation, it is a contractual relationship. If no contract is created, no contract can be breached.
So also I talked about juxtaposition about the KWAM 1 case. His own, maybe even weightier, has the borderline about hijacking. The NCAA man had come here to say they don't have prosecutory powers, so they petitioned the IGP and the AGF to sue the Fuji musician, who has apologized, but the people say he has to face his day in court. Other explainers has to be done to the judge and all that. What do you make of that particular situation? Because from the laws I saw, it looks like if he's found guilty of hijacking, he may spend the rest of his life in jail.
Well, if the airline authority is saying that they do not have prosecutorial powers, the question would then be,
not the airline, the NCAA, the petition, the AGF, and the IGP, because they can't prosecute. Not the airline. Airline can't prosecute.
That's fine. The power of prosecution in the entire country resides in the Attorney General exclusively. It is the Attorney General that decides to delegate the power to anybody to prosecute on his behalf. So there is nothing wrong in petitioning the office of the Attorney General to look into the matter, take up the file, prosecute the person if a prima facie case is found. in the course of investigation against the person. But you know, we must not also have double standards in the country. Somebody behaved in a way that was unacceptable yesterday on board Ibom A, and the person was immediately charged to court. Was the person charged by the office of the Attorney General? Why did the same office not also charge KWAM, who also behaved in a way that was unacceptable? I think we must have equal treatment of similar matters in the country, irrespective of who is involved. Both situations were unacceptable, and they do not provide good optics for Nigeria. You do not go stopping an airline from flying. Now, KWAM was very lucky that the wing of the aircraft, did not hit his head, because we saw how he was able to dodge, and that for me was something that even frightened me watching from a distance. If KWAM had died, the pilot also would have been in trouble, because the pilot would have rightly been charged to court for murder or manslaughter. None of this is good for anybody, let alone a pilot. Manslaughter, if your lawyers are able to argue it out for you and say it was unintentional killing, once there is killing, the penalty is that you go to jail and remain there forever. And that's not good for any pilot. So what am I saying in essence? There is need for restraint by every professional. A professional pilot must not be someone that can easily trigger her, anger level, or his anger level must be someone that will be circumspect in taking decisions. And also, passengers using airlines must also not provoke these things from occurring. Who is the person that even cleared KWAM? I have asked that question, because when you travel, when the aircraft, the boarding has stopped, nobody allows you to pass. How come that KWAM was able to move from the boarding area, get to where the flight was already waiting to fly? That itself was unacceptable. So I think that this whole thing should be treated equally. It should be treated decisively. And thank God the Minister of Aviation is a lawyer, senior one at that. And I don't know, yesterday I was just asking myself, could it be that the president had known that something like this was going to happen, or had foreseen, was he a prophet to have seen that a time like this was coming, and therefore he sends Festus Keyamo, to the aviation industry? Nigerians look up to him as a senior advocate and as someone who knows his onions to be able to handle these situations, both situations equally, and ensure that justice, is attained in this whole thing, so as to stop citizens from behaving anyhow. The airport is such a sensitive place that we cannot just allow anybody, irrespective of who the person is, from behaving anyhow in a way that can endanger other people's lives.
So now that we understand that it's the Attorney General that has that reserves the right to prosecute, and we await that, and we are not seeing the airline itself prosecuting KWAM in the first instance, how should we be interpreting the refusal to act on both parts, on the part of the airline, ValueJet now, and on the part of the Attorney General? That's in a matter of days if we do not see any action from both parties.
Well, legally speaking, ValueJets cannot really do anything. The highest they can do is to ban KWAM, from entering their flights anymore and stop receiving money from
see, Mr. Ekemini, but we see Ibom Air pressing charges in the case of Comfort Emansin.
Yes, no, so like I said, ValueJet can hardly do anything, right? Because they do not have the power of prosecution. But it is the Attorney General of the Federation that has the power of prosecution as found in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and every other agency has the power donated to them by the Attorney General. So it was very good yesterday that instead of keeping a citizen of Nigeria in unlawful custody, the citizen was immediately taken to the court. And I commend the airport authority for that, or whoever did the prosecution, because the Constitution of Nigeria has insisted over time that whenever anybody has committed an offense, charge the person to court within 24 hours if you have courts of competent jurisdiction within the radius of 40 kilometers. And there are many courts in Lagos, and rightly she was taken there. We would have expected that the same treatment would be meted out to KWAM. KWAM has apologized, which is beautiful. That's honorable of him. But at the same time, the law courts is not a religious a place of worship where you just apologize and it is gone. In the law court, apology is good. You have accepted that you have done something that is unacceptable. Okay, so in the meting of punishment by the judge or by the magistrate, that apology is going to be taken into consideration, and therefore you may be given a lesser punishment. But to say that the apology alone, like I have read elsewhere, that apology means to err is human, and to forgive is human, to forgive is divine. Well, that's fine. But where people have committed offenses against the laws of the Federation of Nigeria or against the laws of any state of the Federation, what is required is that appropriate punishment, appropriate measures be taken in line with the provisions of the law so as to treat that matter equally. So I want to believe that the Ministry of Aviation is not done with the KWAM 1 matter. Nigerians will be disappointed if that is all that can be done by Nigeria against KWAM 1. I just want to believe and give them the benefit of doubt that very soon Nigerians are going to be briefed about the way forward on the issue of KWAM 1.
Well, thank you so much. Sorry we had to rush because of time. We're really literally racing. Ekaminudim, always brilliant in your submission on the perspective of the law. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's quickly go to some of your responses to our question of the day, and we have quite a number of them coming through. This one is from MAO from Akure, who says, good morning. The issues about lack of respect for our rules and regulations. The law must apply to both. There should not be selective judgment. That's from MAO Akure.
This is coming from Simon. Pure selective justice in play here. Pure story of Animal Farm, if you know what I mean.
And this one is from David Achuga, who says, good morning. Do you know Oshomole did it first? That's the senator from Edo State. Nothing happened, and Wasiu second. He's in his house singing apology. Then this Ibom girl is taken to court under 2 hours. That's from David Achuga.
All right, this is coming from... Okay, so regarding the KWAM 1 and KWAM 2, it is clear case of selective judgment, almost the same offense but different judgment. I was surprised hearing that she's been convicted immediately without a thorough investigation. She's not been convicted.
She hasn't been convicted yet.
She's just been charged. As our security will often say, I hope the young girl gets the justice she deserves. But furthermore, I hope Nigerians learn from incidents. There's absolute disregard for the rule of law and so much impunity.
And this one is from Uche Chuku, who says KWAM 1 and KWAM 2. In both cases, NCAA and the Aviation Ministry must bear in mind that ICAO is keenly watching and interested in how Nigeria will handle the issues. That's a very good point there.
Yes, very good point. So that we're not going to be accused of selective justice. So both of them must have their day in court.
Yeah, do we have a summary?
Yes,
yes.
I guess so.
We have a summary.
So we did ask a question
on your screens now.
We did ask a question whether it is selective justice or difference in context between the KWAM 1 incident and comfort, known as now called KWAM 2. So
what will be coming through is an aggregate of your views that goes to show those who believe it's selective justice or those who think it's difference in context.
So that's
and
the scorecard.
There you have it on your screen.
70% say selective justice, 27% say different context. All right, so that is a small poll side. Thank you so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Bye-bye.
We'll be back again tomorrow. Sunrise Daily is up next, by the way. I am Bukola Toka. Bye for now.